The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We've still got a couple more minutes before we join, but Valerie and I both wanted to say thank you very much for taking time to be with us this evening. We've got a lot to cover. If you look at your toolbar, the gray bar that you have on your screen, you'll see a section that's called questions. That's where you actually will enter any comments that you have and any questions that you have for us. You'll also see in the chat that there are questions that we can ask you, but you won't be able to converse with us in the chat area. The webinar is not set up that way. So if you look at the questions right now that are listed in the chat, if you go to the questions section, enter in there where you're calling from, and then also what you want to get out of today's webinar. We'll give you a couple minutes to do that. And then also, if you can, Harish is raising their hand. So do you have a question?
Can't hear.
Harish can't hear?
Yep.
All right. Harish, or actually Valerie, if you can just type to make sure that the green, the mute.
Yes, okay.
And look at their audio and just make sure that his audio is connected.
Okay, so I am looking at, yep, attendees, unmute. But I don't want to unmute.
I don't think you'll be able to unmute them.
No, okay. So it all looks good on my end.
Okay.
And can the rest of you hear us?
Yeah, if you can hear us, raise your hand.
And that means go into the attendees area and you'll see that you can raise your hand. Yes, so I see a lot of raised hands.
Okay, great.
Some no hands. Hands, yes, okay.
All right. And is the picture, let me clear out the raised hands here. Is the picture clear? Can you see Valerie and I both clearly? Raise your hand if you can. Excellent.
Okay, Barbara says yes. Great.
All right. So we will just be starting in a couple more minutes. Actually, it's 7:30 right now. We'll give one more minute, and then we will we'll start. Hang on one second.
Yeah,
I'm going to clear out my screen here. All right.
Okay, and just wondering if you could all let us know where you're calling in from.
Yeah, go into the questions section, and you can type in there where you're calling from. So the chat section won't work. You'll need to go into the questions tab and type your question or your comment in there.
Okay. Toronto.
Hey.
Dubai.
All right, so we've got people from Toronto, Dubai, Abu Dhabi.
Sharjah.
Okay.
Got 22 of 101.
All right. So the other question that we want you to type into the other comment that we want you to type into this question section is, what do you want to take away from today's webinar? So we make sure that we're giving you the information that you want. So if you can type that in as well.
Mhm. Ideas on how to better make use of the virtual world. Yes,
Okay.
that's the topic of the day. Ideas to stay active and productive.
All right. Cool. Well, we'll definitely be covering that. We do have a lot to cover today, so it's just a couple of minutes after 7:30. It's 7:32 right now. So let's go ahead and start. My name is Dennis Kight. I'm the Director of Knowledge and a member of the Board of Directors for the International Coach Federation UAE chapter. And Valerie Miller is here with me. She's an ACC coach, business executive, and career coach.
Career and team coach.
And
yeah.
team coach. She's helping me today. I have been working virtually for a little over 10 years now. So I've had lots and lots of practice on what to do, what not to do, and how to kind of navigate this world that all of us have been thrust into, some by choice and some not by choice in the past couple of weeks. So let's go ahead and we'll move to our first slide. So we're living in unprecedented times right now. What we're going through has never happened in the world before. And a lot of people are still trying to come to terms with how to make sense of what's going on. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. It's completely normal to be feeling those things. And the environment that we were used to up until March of this year basically has stopped, and a new environment has started from there. And so there's this period of mourning that we're going through. If you think of the 5 stages of grief that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has come up with, you have denial, you have anger, bargaining, sadness, and acceptance. The stages that you go through are very normal, and we all are going through different stages within this grief model at different paces. It's not linear. And so just be aware of what you are feeling and realize that what you're feeling is normal. We're all human beings at the end of the day. We need to process through these emotions and go on from there. David Kessler has actually added a 6th stage to the stages of grief, and it's finding meaning. And I think that for me personally, that's where I see the excitement of this change that's taking place, because we have an entirely new world in front of us that we have the ability to kind of chart any way that we want it to be. So we create what we want. We create the world that we want to live in, the world that we want to work in, and move forward. So it's an exciting phase or time in our lives that we can actually take advantage of. But again, just be aware that it's not linear. You have to go through one area before you go through another, and that you jump from this one to that one, and you have to be there for a certain amount of time. Everyone is individual, and you'll go through these different stages individually. We spend so much time taking care of other people that we sometimes forget that we need to take care of ourselves. And it always reminds me of when you're on an airplane and they say if the oxygen masks fall, then you need to put on your own oxygen mask before you help others. And in this case, we need to put on our own oxygen masks to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of other people.
Beautiful, beautiful metaphor.
Thanks.
Okay.
So remember as well that we're learning to use new muscles now, and it takes time. For those of you who have been to the gym, it is painful the first couple of days that you go and you lift weights and your muscles hurt you the next day, and then the second day afterwards they hurt even worse. And you think, do I even want to go back and go to the 3rd day? And then you go back and then your muscles still hurt a little bit more, and eventually they get used to it. So this process that we're going through is the same thing. It takes time. Don't rush it. Take the time that you need. Our session today is, I'd like it to be interactive, and that's where I want you to post your questions and comments in the questions section of the tool. But I realize that there's a wealth of knowledge, a collective knowledge that we have, so let's share it between us. let's start with a poll question. So Valerie, let's do poll question number 1.
Okay.
So poll question number 1, go ahead and read that, Valerie.
Okay, on a scale from 1 to 5, how comfortable am I with working from home? 1, I hate working from home. 2, I tolerate it, but I don't like it. 3, neutral. 4, I enjoy working from home. 5, I love working from home. And I think I'm a 5 at this point.
Me too.
I think I've always been a 5, even when I wasn't working at home.
So we've got
Okay.
quite a few people. 76% of you have voted so far. We've got another couple of minutes.
Sorry, I closed it.
Oh, you closed it? Okay, that's fine. So then let's share the results.
Okay, so I hate working from home, 0. That's great. I tolerate it, but I don't like it, 8%. Neutral, 4%. 69% enjoy working from home, and
Excellent.
19 love.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. Well, I will feel like I've accomplished great things if I can get the 4% and the 8% from I tolerate it, but I don't like it, and it's neutral, up to at least I enjoy working from home. So I've set the goal for myself. Don't let me down, please. Let's go to the next poll question.
Okay. The greatest challenge I face while working from home is I have no self-discipline. I am constantly interrupted by my spouse or children. There are too many distractions in my home. I don't know when work starts and when it stops. I miss being with my work colleagues.
Okay, and we'll just give a couple more minutes or a couple more seconds for that. We've got 54% have voted so far. Let's get it up to about 75, 80%.
Okay. I have no self-discipline with the refrigerator, for example.
That's what I'm finding.
Has nothing to do with work.
Yeah. Our dog has gained 600 grams in the past couple of weeks since we can't take him for a walk anymore. So even he's having problems.
Right. Yeah. The whole family's suffering. Okay.
All right. Let's go ahead and close the.
Okay.
And then let's share.
Okay. I don't know when work starts and when it stops is the biggest, is 28%. And then there are too many distractions in my home. Oh, no, the biggest one is I miss being with my work colleagues. Yeah, no connection.
Okay. All right.
So, okay.
Let me go back and let's see.
And Dennis will be addressing all of those issues.
Yes, I will be. So if we start with tip number 1, it's having the right tools. So if I think about the right tools that I need in working from home, I think of a comfortable chair, adequate workspace and writing space, good lighting, a laptop or desktop, good quality headset, storage for office supplies and files and papers, a printer with paper as well, a strong and stable internet connection, VPN, if that's required, and then collaboration tools like Zoom, Skype, WebEx, GoToMeetings. Those are the basics for having the right tools. What tools did I miss out on, and what tools are you missing from your own homework toolbox that you need in order to make you more effective?
If you could put something in the questions box, and we can read them. Okay. Ideas. Okay. Well, one thing that I have recently gotten is something called Calendly, which helps people just go online and book time with me, and I'm able to connect my webinars to Calendly so that they can pay, and then clients can pay and then join the webinar. So that works very nicely with Zoom and PayPal. That's one thing I've discovered is pretty helpful. And no one is, maybe your list was so complete.
So comprehensive. Okay.
So yeah, let's move on.
All right. So let's move on to tip number 2, which is designating a workspace and a work schedule. And I think that this is where we're going to start to address some of the comments that we had coming in earlier. You want to create the ability to put your work away and not see it when you're not working. So by designating a workspace and a work schedule, you can do that. You can choose anywhere in the house to do that or anywhere in your apartment to do that. But what I would definitely recommend is that you not, if you can help it, don't set up your office in your bedroom. Number one, it's a great way to kill any sort of romance. The last thing that you want to see when you're laying in bed is your work staring back at you. And also you end up your brain will start to connect your bedroom with work. And so when you want to go into your bedroom to relax, it'll be much more difficult for you to do so. And that's why I would recommend for people never to work out of bed. Again, because your brain will start to connect sitting in bed with working. And when you actually get into bed to go to bed at night, you won't be able to, because your brain will turn on to working mode instead. So find a place in the house where you can set up your office, even if that's at the dining room table or the kitchen table or wherever it is. Designate that spot as your work spot, and that's the spot that you go to every day. And I say this for a couple of reasons. If you can set a routine, you yourself will start to get into the routine that you know that when you're sitting in that space, you're at work, and so then your brain will click into work mode. And also when your family starts to see you sitting in that space, they also realize that you're at work and they won't bother you while you're there. Another tip that I have would be planning your daily work schedule and do it in increments or blocks of time, especially now with everything that we're juggling with at home, with not only with work, but with house cleaning and cooking, schooling from home and everything else. We need to figure out a way of making that whole schedule work together. And so what I would recommend is that you block chunks of time that you schedule and set aside. This is the time that we're going to be doing homeschooling, and you stick to that schedule. And during this time is when I'm going to be working, and I won't be able to be interrupted during this particular time. And then you can start scheduling your work, any work meetings or things like that around that time. If you block in your calendar and block out chunks of time that you're using for homeschooling or things like that, then no one else will be able to come in and take that time away from you. So you can schedule other times with them. What that ends up doing is it ends up kind of extending your day into different parts. It could be that you wake up at 6 in the morning and you're super productive, and you get in a good 2 to 3 hours of work before other things start, and then you take a break for a couple of hours and you do homeschooling, and then you come back to work again for 3 or 4 hours, and then you take another break, type of thing. But you find a work schedule that works for you and you stick with that schedule. If you don't,
it also helps. I think it also helps your when you have that work schedule where every day you're working from, let's say, 12 to 3. It also helps your family to manage their expectations of you. So they know that there's something they can count on. They can't bother you from that time to that time. Okay.
Exactly.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Stick to the schedule. Otherwise, your work will take over your life. And this is some of the other things that I hear quite a bit is, I feel like that when I work from home, I'm working 24 hours a day. And if you allow yourself, or if you allow your work to take over your schedule for 24 hours, it will. And that's why if you can designate a work schedule, you work during that time, you close up your station, you put it away, and you continue on with your personal life, you can delineate between the two and not have your work completely take over your life. Build a permanent ergonomic workspace if you can. I remember back when I was working in corporate and I was flying way more than I wanted to. There would be times I would be flying from Dubai to San Francisco and I would be sitting in economy class on my laptop doing emails for 5 or 6 hours on the flight, and I would get off of the flight. My neck would be killing me, my back would be hurting, and I wouldn't be able to move afterwards. And it was because I wasn't in an ergonomic space to actually do work. So if you are going to be working from home permanently, what I would suggest is that you order a good office chair because you're going to be spending a lot of time in it, and designate that chair as your office chair. It makes all the difference, or it made all the difference for me when I invested in my office chair. Draw a very strong line between your work and then your family and your leisure time. You owe it to your family to spend time with them, and you owe it to your employer to spend time at work, but you can draw that line in between the two so that you can do both. And I think one of the ways of being able to do that is to communicate with your spouse and with your children and set clear rules for when, for example, if you're working interrupted, if your child comes in and it's during a period of time when you can't be interrupted, and you have a red card or a red flag or something like that, and you can just lift up the red flag or the red card, your child will know this is a time that I can't interrupt mom or dad, and then they'll come back at a later time. But you can't expect them to know that without communicating that out with them in the first place. So if you could align on those expectations, it makes it a lot easier to do so. Not everyone is blessed with the extra space to be able to completely take over a room and turn it into an office. Sometimes we have to share rooms with other people. So what are some of the other ways that maybe we can create a designated workspace if we're living in a smaller home or a smaller apartment? Go ahead and type in a couple of your suggestions in the questions section.
I was thinking of, what is it called? Like a screen, you know, those
Like
3-paneled screens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could. Anybody else have any ideas of how to designate a workspace when you don't have a room that that you can use as an office? And that seems to be a problem for a lot of people because you've got both parents working from home. Sometimes people have roommates and everybody's in the same space. So any ideas for creating a workspace that's your own?
So I've got, I read something a couple of days ago about someone who was looking, they didn't have the space to create workspace, and so they had to think of something creative. But before I share that, Valerie, do you have some that have come through?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Hang a curtain that you can close between sections. I use the dining room table. Yep. I miss quiet workspace. My desk, I just need to move around adjusting to my kids' e-learning. Yes, so that might be adjusting the times that you're able to work there. Yeah, so that's what we have so far.
Okay. So this article that I read the other day was a person who was living in a small apartment. They needed designated workspace but didn't have it. And so what they did is they took an extra closet that they were keeping their winter clothes in, or clothes that they don't necessarily wear a lot. They put those into Tupperware containers and then turned that closet into their workspace. They took out the shelves, put in a small desk in the closet. You could set everything up. At the end of the day, you just close the doors and you're away from your work. Then you don't have to see it either. So
that's so great.
So in situations like we're in now, we kind of have to think of creative ways that we can resolve these issues and do it for a long-term plan. I don't think
Right.
that it's going to be anytime soon that we go back to what was normal, if we ever go back to normal.
Right. And
So
someone is saying use Zoom backgrounds. That is correct, to
yeah,
block out the background for calls. Yes.
yeah, that's a
There's
great one
another
as well.
feature. There's another feature on Zoom, which is if you go onto the video section in settings, you can also like airbrush your face during the entire Zoom call. I'm not kidding.
I
It's like
saw
enhance the way I look or something.
I
So yeah,
saw a viral
got that
video
one
the
on.
other day of a manager who had posted her face as a Snapchat filter. It was the potato head face. And when she went into her Zoom meeting, the head face showed up with her mouth talking, and she could not figure out how to take it off. And she had to do the entire meeting as the Mrs. Potato Head. So when you're playing with these filters, just I would say don't play with them during the meeting. Play with them after the meeting or before a meeting so that you know how to play with them and you don't get stuck in a situation like that.
Great.
Let's go on to tip number 3, and we're going to do poll question number 3.
Okay. Question number 3. Okay. I usually wear what when I work from home. Select one of the following. My favorite pair of comfy pajamas, normal office attire, gym clothing or workout clothes, suit and tie, skirt and heels, my underwear, or nothing at all. This was going to be an interesting one.
I'll give people a couple of more seconds to put in their answers. Okay, let's go ahead and close.
Okay.
Excellent. And let's show the responses.
Okay. Yeah, so most people, normal office attire, 43%, and the others, gym clothing or workout clothes. My underwear, nothing at all, has 3%.
Okay, there was actually a video the other day of a guy in a conference call who did not realize that he had turned on his camera, and he stood up and he was not wearing anything at all. And his team was all saying, dude, turn off your camera, turn off your camera. No. He had no idea what was going on. So I would tell people and remind them over and over again, you have a camera on your computer, make sure that you're always aware that that camera is on.
Right.
So
funny.
When it comes to dressing for the office, having normal office attire, I personally, when I first started working from home, I kept the same routine as if I was going into the office. So I would wake up in the morning, I would take a shower, I would shave when I was supposed to shave. And then I would put on my office clothes, and then I would walk into my home office and start working. And the reason why I did that was a couple of things. I wanted to remind myself that I was working, but I also wanted to teach my children, because they were fairly young at that point, that when they saw me sitting at my computer in my home office and I was dressed in office clothing, that meant that Dad was at work. So they didn't bother me then because they knew Dad's at work now. If they saw me sitting at my laptop and I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, like I would typically wear on the weekend, then they would approach me. So it was a good way to not only convince myself, but it was a good way of communicating to those around me that I was at work as well.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry. I was just going to say that when I have my clients on the line, I always try to dress in a very, let's say, professional. I mean, I'm not in a suit, but in a comfortable but professional outfit, because I feel like human beings, whether we like it or not, you want to be taken seriously, and if you do, dress for that. And that's just my philosophy.
Yep. So. No, and it's a good one, and it's always best if you're sitting in front of your computer and you're working, and then suddenly your manager says, let's get onto a video call. And you're like,
Right.
oh, I needed to get out of my pajamas and comb my hair. And if you're already dressed, you can say, great, let's go and do it right now. So, and it, again, it builds that daily routine and it makes it much easier for you to then concentrate on work while you're at work. So a lot of these tips I learned and practiced before, I call it before COVID. BC is before COVID, AC is after COVID. Before
Okay.
COVID, you were expected to present yourself in a certain way. It had to be very professional, very polished. Your hair had to be a certain way. You had to have on makeup if you're a woman, blah, 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 blah. After COVID, people have now started to see we're actually human beings and we have a life that's going on at the same time that we're working. So if children walk into the room, or if you see, for example, my door open behind me, but no one comes in, I just know that that's my dog who's come in and has laid down on the carpet behind me. Those things are all acceptable now. They weren't acceptable before. So what I would tell people is wear what you need to accomplish the task that's at hand. I'm sure that wearing your office clothing isn't conducive to teaching your children about physical education as part of homeschooling. So if that means that you need to change into gym clothing, and then you do a couple of things for work afterwards, it's perfectly appropriate to dress that way. So
Right.
kind of adapt your dress to the tasks that you're working on. Okay.
Okay.
So tip number 4, connect with your colleagues. I remember in the original poll, a lot of people were saying that they missed being with their colleagues. So what are some of the things that you're doing to connect with your colleagues now? If you could put a couple of comments into the question section.
Okay. Well, one thing that I thought was very powerful from a team coaching session I did the other day, a team of 27 people. At the beginning of the call, we asked them if you could use the weather as a metaphor, everyone, how is the weather as a metaphor for how you're doing and how you're handling and managing this new world? What would the weather be like where you are? And it was a quick way to sort of get everybody, without storytelling, to say, like, how are they doing at this moment? So that's one thing that I think was a cool way to get people to connect.
That is a great way of doing that. What else are we hearing?
Yeah. We are ditto if with clients, professional, and even makeup. Okay, no, that's something else. So no ways of connecting being written down.
That's fine.
Okay.
We've got lots that we can share with you.
Great.
So I would say reach out to your colleagues. They're feeling lonely. You're feeling lonely as well. Just reach out to them. Reach out because you want to connect, not because you want something from them or you need something from them. Just show a genuine interest. Call them and say, how are you doing? And just have a conversation along those lines. I always listen for one-word answers whenever I ask a question. And I had to learn this with talking with my father on the telephone. I would say, how are you doing? And he'd say, fine. And I'd say, what are your plans for today? Nothing. And it was like pulling teeth to try to get him to say things. And so I've learned now that when he says fine, my next question is, and what is it that makes it fine? And that forces him then to talk a little bit more and really express what he's feeling, and it starts that conversation. When you're having conversations with your colleagues, listen to their challenges. Ask them how they plan to address those challenges. Share some of your ideas if they're open to it, and offer your support to them as well. Talk about things that are positive. One thing that I've learned, and I had to do this in order to survive myself, is I learned how to look at my computer screen not as a computer screen, but I look at that as I look at the other person that I'm speaking with on the screen, and I imagine them sitting in front of me, that I'm having a conversation with them. So I try to look in their eyes and have the behaviors that I would have if the person were sitting in front of me. And that's a way of kind of eliminating the technology that stands between us. I don't think of all the wires and the cables and everything else that we go through to communicate. I'm looking at this person, their picture in front of me, and I'm just imagining them sitting or standing in front of me. I think one of the other things is utilizing team rooms, whether that is for, hey, let's set up a quick 15-minute coffee room, and let's all grab a cup of coffee and go into a casual room and just have a casual conversation. It doesn't have to be about anything work related or anything. It's just kind of to shoot the breeze and reconnect with your colleagues.
Yeah, I've heard of virtual lunches happening where people get together, they go onto Zoom, they do not talk about business, and they just talk about their personal life once a week, just to keep that human connection that used to happen around the coffee pot, as you were saying.
Yeah, no, it's a great way of doing it. When it comes to being a leader, make sure that you're communicating really clear goals with your team. So that they know exactly what's expected of them. Delegate decision-making to them and empower them. Schedule frequent check-ins, not check-outs or check-ups. So just check in to see how they are doing, not check in to see what they are doing, or check out what they're doing. Start the day maybe as a team in the first 20 minutes, you just set the environment of let's just talk about whatever we want to talk about during this first 20 minutes. There's no judgment going on. It's not work related. It's just going to be to kind of set the environment that we're in. Afterwards, you can talk about maybe what the plans are for the day. What are some of the deliverables that are coming up? Maybe identify some of the obstacles that could possibly come in the way that people need help with. And then ask people to share something, a triumph or something that they've experienced from the day before that they can share, whether it's a deliverable or a breakthrough in a new approach to something, just anything at all, to kind of create this feeling of still socializing, but doing it electronically rather than face-to-face.
Some of the things that are coming in, WhatsApp audio notes, create WhatsApp chats just to ask people how they're doing, call them or send them a WhatsApp message. And I see to it that we still have huddle meetings as well as ensure we can check in. Also co-creating with colleagues during this time to support each other.
Yeah, those are all great suggestions. And again, this is one of the great things about living through and experiencing what we're doing now is there's all these new approaches that we have of connecting with people that we never thought of before. And how many more are going to come up as we start to exercise those muscles even more so.
There's a question that is how can you be present when you are virtual? So
I think the best way to be present when you're being virtual is to actually listen to the conversation, not listen. It's like active listening. You don't listen for the sake of answering or preparing your answer. You're listening to really hear the words that the person is saying. When you are looking into the person's eyes as you're communicating with them, it's much easier to be engaged and present than it is if you are checking your phone or anything else. Again, it's a muscle that you need to exercise. I've actually set up my coaching business where I do everything virtually, and I've introduced my clients to virtual coaching, and they never realized, or they told me afterwards, I didn't realize that it could be as impactful as it was. And it's just a matter of practicing it and learning what works, experimenting, trying new things, adjusting where things don't work, and go from there.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Let's go into tip number 5, which is connect with your manager. So I'm going to ask you a true or false question. If you could answer either true or false in the question section. The question is, my manager knows how to manage me remotely. My manager knows how to manage me remotely. So if you can put true or false.
True. Okay. We have I think what I think is a no, but okay. And true, true. True, true. That's great news. Luckily, I don't have a manager. So do you know how to manage your team if you have a team, I guess? Okay.
Okay. So the
True.
reason why I asked that question is a lot of managers are struggling with how to lead a team remotely. They've never done it before. And so my tips would be reach out to your manager, decide with them how often you want to communicate, what tool you want to use to communicate, and what exactly they want to hear within that communication, and the frequency behind that. And then I would say schedule uninterrupted time at least once every 2 weeks where you can sit down with your manager and you can talk about deliverables, you can talk about due dates, any obstacles that you may be encountering, any help that you need, or things like that. But the other regular conversation should happen on a more frequent basis. Anticipate your manager's needs and reach out to them and maybe answer some of the questions that you think they're going to ask you. Answer them before they can ask them to ask you for those questions. I think that's a great way of helping your manager to understand you don't need to spend a lot of time with me micromanaging me because I'm proactive enough to communicate these things back to you. And I think that really what you'll start to see as you're looking at all of these tips that I'm sharing is communication is the foundation of all of them. You need to be a really strong communicator with your audience when you are working from home because people don't know what you're doing. You need to let them know what you're doing and let them feel comfortable with what you're doing. One of the other tips that I would share would be ask your manager if they've got a pet project or something that they really want to work on but just haven't had the bandwidth to work on, and something that you could take on for them. But I would say do that if you know that you can deliver on that. If you can't deliver on the project, don't take it. But if you can deliver on it, and this isn't going to be a project that's going to be 1 week and you have to cram for it in 1 week. It could be something that's more of a long-term type of project. But doing those types of things will make your manager feel more comfortable. And then finally, ask your manager what they need from you. Ask them how you can help them to adjust to this new work environment, because it's just as new for them as it is for you.
Great. Okay. I have a question
Yes.
from someone. I watch body language a lot while I coach. When I coach virtually, I am limited to the face, which tells a lot, but not at all. Any tips?
So I would start to think of, when you're looking at body language, what you can kind of see even from the face. If I were to sit here, you're only seeing my face, but my body has kind of changed as compared to if I'm looking at you like this. So
Right.
I think what you have to do is you just have to focus that learning that you've kind of learned from looking at a person's body and how that actually reflects in their face as well, because it will reflect in their face.
Right. Yes.
I think as well, if you have questions about a person's reaction, ask them.
Ask them.
I've noticed
ask them to use a metaphor.
Or even I noticed that when we were talking about this, you kind of slumped back in your chair a little bit. So what is it that you're thinking about when that happens?
Right.
Those types of things. So you start to link it to their face and you'll get more comfortable with it. Again, it's a muscle that you practice, and it'll take some time to do it. But I think that the skill that you'll gain from it will come along a lot quicker than you realize if you just start to practice that. Hopefully that's answered your question.
Yep.
All right. Let's go into tip number 6. Practice online etiquette. And we have another poll. So let's do poll number 3. Or is this poll number 4?
I don't know. The
next poll.
The most distracting sound to hear on a voice or video call is eating sounds, bathroom sounds, overhearing another conversation, children screaming or crying, or dogs barking, or cats meowing, Dennis. That
Yeah.
happens a lot at my house. Yeah.
Okay.
So 48, 52. Okay. 79.
All right.
All right.
Let's go ahead and
So,
close.
all right.
Share the results.
Overhearing another conversation. Yes.
Yeah, that is
biggest.
extremely annoying. And that a very simple way to keep that from happening is use your mute button. If you aren't talking, go on mute. And then if someone comes and asks you a question, you can make sure that that you're muted before you actually answer their question.
Right.
I don't know how many times I've been on global calls where you hear someone carrying on just a regular conversation in the background, not realizing that everyone in the world is hearing what this person is saying. Yeah, use your mute button.
And also the headset will muffle many sounds. So it would be a really good thing to always use a headset.
Yeah.
With a mic.
Yes.
So I'm going to hide the results. Children screaming or crying. Oh, yeah. And eating sounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, let's look at the two sides, before COVID and after COVID. Do you remember back in 2017 when this guy was being interviewed on the BBC and his children ran into the room and the wife ran into the room and grabbed the children and dragged them out the door, and that video became viral?
Right.
That was just a couple of years ago.
That's happening every day now.
No kidding, at least once a day.
Right.
Those things that was before. Again, before COVID, everything had to be perfect. It was like a stage that you were on. Now we're in our homes and people realize that we're in our homes. So if your children come in, they come in. Hopefully they're not sitting there screaming and crying. But if they come in and they look at the screen, for example, it's not this massive faux pas that you've made. It's much more acceptable for those types of things to happen now.
Right.
What I would tell people is plan ahead to avoid distractions. So if you know that you're going to be in a conference call at around the time that your child is waking up from a nap, for example, make sure that there's someone there who can be with your child when they wake up from the nap, so that they're not coming in and screaming and crying for you in the middle of your presentation. Or if they do and you're not speaking, make sure that you're on mute. And you could even mute your camera if you want to.
Yes.
I have learned to put a picture of myself, a nice picture of myself, on whenever I go on mute, so that they still see me, but it's a picture of me. So I'm there, but I'm not there.
Cool.
So yeah, plan ahead and avoid those distractions if you can. If you can't, you deal with them at the time.
Right.
Always use your camera. Again, that's a way of connecting with people. If we're only hearing voices, it's much more difficult to connect with someone. When you can see them, it's much easier. I would love for webinars actually to have the ability for us to see everyone and everyone to communicate. That's done through meetings. It's not done through webinars. So I think that's one of the things that will probably end up changing because of this new environment that we're working in.
And can I ask a question? Can I ask you a question? So I feel like, that's me, I feel like not putting your camera on is the new faux pas.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So
it is.
You agree.
You get the impression of like, this person doesn't want to communicate with me.
Right.
And I know
it's
that
not
people
cool for the others.
Yeah, and I know that people are concerned about, but my hair doesn't look right and things. I remember I was on a meeting, actually a board meeting, and everyone didn't have their cameras on. I said, my camera's on. Let's let everyone turn their cameras on. And they said, but my hair's not done. My makeup's not done. I said, I'm not wearing any makeup and my hair's not done either, so I'm not expecting you to have it on either. So we all got on, and it was like, let's have this conversation. again,
Right.
we're living our real lives. These are true lives that we're living now. So if you don't look your best, it's okay. If you know that you're going to
Right.
be presenting, try to make sure that you still look presentable, but don't be afraid to turn on your camera just because you haven't put on your false eyelashes or something.
Yes.
So think about the position of your camera, the location, the background that people are seeing, the lighting, those types of things. Eliminate any background noise if you can. If you can't, then just try to minimize it. Selectively use the mute on your microphone and on your camera. I tell people be ready 5 or 10 minutes before a call is actually ready to start, and then make sure that you join the call on time. If you're not going to be on time, at least notify the administrator that you're going to be late or that you have to leave early, or even worse, that you're not going to be able to give your presentation. You want that person to know in advance. You don't want everyone sitting there waiting for you to give your presentation and then you don't even show up. Then people are going to think you're
Right.
laying dead in the gutter or something.
Yeah.
So I tell people as well, if you're going on to large calls, make sure that you identify yourself when you're speaking, especially if other people don't know who you are. And it could be something as easy as, this is Dennis, I'm calling from Dubai, and here's my question. So that people at least kind of know that way. Participate in the calls, be polite, try not to interrupt other people, give other people a chance to speak. There's always someone who loves the sound of their own voice and they will say completely worthless things in a meeting just for the sake of hearing them speak. And it's the most
Right.
annoying thing to do. So don't be that person. And then
Absolutely.
just a couple tips. Take notes while you are in the meeting. Stay engaged. Don't go off and start reading emails or playing Sudoku or things like that. Try to stay engaged while you're in these meetings. And then again, mute your phone when you're not speaking.
Yeah. That covered it all. You had my whole list. You kept saying things that I was thinking.
Okay.
Okay. Inform them in advance so you reduce potential it's inform any potential phone callers that you are in a webinar virtual learning. That's so true. Inform them in advance so you reduce potential disturbance or attempts to reach out to you. Yes, there is something that I've been struggling with recently. While giving a webinar, my mother has been calling me on FaceTime. And
Oh.
and I don't know how to turn off FaceTime in my computer. So it's literally like my mother, mom, it says. I'm not sure if the people in the webinar can see that, but they can hear it.
Yeah.
So if I find a solution, I'll send a group email.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of those. Even on my phone now, if I look at it, there are a ton of messages that have come through, notifications. My phone is muted. I don't look at my phone. I don't answer WhatsApp messages or anything when I'm in a meeting.
Yes.
So if you're in the audience and you were trying to WhatsApp me, I'll look at your message afterwards. So let's go on to tip number 7. Don't multitask during meetings. There's a very specific reason why I chose a woman in this picture. And the reason is because men are not capable of multitasking. I'm a man, I own it, I can't do it. I've read studies that prove that women can't do it either, but if someone could multitask, it would be a woman. It would definitely not be a man.
Yeah.
What I would say though about this particular picture is if you are in a meeting, don't do what this woman is doing. If you are just working, it could be that these twins, maybe they just woke up from their nap before they were supposed to. Her spouse or partner is in a meeting that they can't get to and she needs to get something out in email, but she needs to take care of her children at the same time. And this would be acceptable to do so. It wouldn't be acceptable if she's actually in a meeting and she has the children on her shoulders. So I always apply the concept of, if I were in a face-to-face meeting, would I do this? If the answer
Right.
is no, then don't do it when you're in a working from home and in a meeting. Um,
Yes.
so in order to keep from having to multitask and do these things, it's really important that you schedule time with your spouse and figure out who's going to be watching your children, who's going to be homeschooling, etc., during what times, and you tag team between the two of you. I was in a meeting last week that was with McKinsey, and they were talking about the challenges of working from home, and they said that women have it much more difficult than men do because now women are responsible not only for working from home, but they need to do the housework, they need to watch the children, they need to homeschool the children, and they need to do the cooking and cleaning as well. And I raised my hand and I said, where's their spouse? Because he's
Right.
working from home as well. So
Yeah.
this is a partnership that you have to work with. So there may be times where we tag team and we say, okay, you need to do this meeting right now. I'm going to take care of the kids. And other times
Right.
where I need to take care of the kids or I need to do this meeting, so you need to take care of the kids. If you schedule those things in advance, it makes it much easier to
Right.
do so.
And it allows your spouse, if you know that between 3 and 6 every day, that's their slot, then you don't even have to have a conversation about it. You
Exactly.
just schedule your meetings for another time because you're on at that time.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. So
yeah.
I was going to ask a true or false question, and the question was, working from home means that I can do a bunch of personal things at the same time that I'm working. Um, but the answer really isn't true or false because it depends. If you can squeeze in a load of laundry at the same time that you're writing out a couple of emails or waiting for a response for a project that you're working on, why not?
Right.
I wouldn't suggest that you start ironing your laundry and trying to do a web meeting at the same time. But as you start to work these muscles that we all have now, and you become much more proficient, you can start to juggle things a lot more. One of the things that I have found, and I absolutely love about working from home, is I am so much more productive in a fraction of the amount of time than I was if I was going into the office. So I could accomplish in
Yes.
1 or 2 hours what was taking me 8 hours in the office to accomplish.
Yeah.
So it gives you the flexibility to actually accomplish more by working from
Right.
home and doing the things that you can and juggling
Yes.
these different areas.
Which means don't beat yourself up if you're doing a load of laundry from time to time because you are so much more productive because of the lack of distraction and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, it's okay to do those things.
Right.
Just don't let those become your priority and your work slips. If your work slips,
Right.
then and your deliverables slip, that's the
Right.
the death, I guess, the death blow to working from home. Um, so
Right.
on that note, are there any other questions that we haven't answered yet? Because we've got just a couple more minutes before we're at 1/2 past the hour.
Mhm. Any other question?
No?
No, because
Excellent.
you have completely answered all of the questions, Dennis. You are
Excellent.
so incredibly thorough.
Well, thank you. So I have one last question, and it's a poll question. And that question is,
On a scale from 1 to 5, how comfortable am I now with working from home? Select one of the following. I still hate it, and that will never change. I'll still only tolerate it because I have to. I can go either way. I think I'll enjoy it even more now. Is it possible to love it even more than I already do? Okay, so yeah, let's see. Okay, so I will
let's close and
close the
share.
Share. Okay, so most of people say, I think I'll enjoy it even more now. That's so
Excellent.
nice.
Excellent.
And yeah, is it
And
possible to love it more than I do?
And it's okay for the ones who only tolerate it because you have to. Reach out to me if you want to talk about some of your frustrations, and maybe we could come up with some solutions together and make it something more enjoyable for you. Let's go back to.
Does anyone want to share something, like some sort of success they had with a new tool, or a best practice that you'd like us to know about? Okay.
Any coming through?
Nope.
All right. Well, here's the time to experiment. Do you see something coming through?
Yes. Wait. Do you anticipate that the WFH will become norm? Work from home. Okay, thank you.
Do I anticipate that work from home will become the norm?
Yes, of the future.
My own opinion, yes. Because I think people are going to see, number one, it's healthier for the environment. Number two, it's healthier for you as an individual. It's more cost effective for an employee. A company no longer has to invest in real estate space to house people in. You can be much more productive with your time. So yeah, I see this global proof of concept that we're going through right now, that within the high-tech industry, we've been preaching this for more than 20 years. But this is the first time that people have been forced into doing it. And I think that now that people start to do it more and more, they're going to start to see that, this actually is the way that we're going to be working in the future.
Yes, somebody says travel time reduced. Others say, no, Dennis, no. A Zoom tip I have just learned, you can use the space bar to mute and unmute.
That's a good one.
And yes, in gig economy, GIG economy.
Yep, it's going to be
Be kind to yourself. As Dennis said, it's a new muscle that many need to train and won't build overnight, yet practice makes the master.
Yep.
I think, from Rania, I think businesses cannot say that it doesn't, quote, it doesn't work anymore. And this way, especially moms with babies have more chances to keep their job after giving birth.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think of the number of, I was going to say, I think the number of industries that are going to be created because of this are incredible. So the opportunities that didn't exist before are going to exist now.
That's right. Yes, exactly. I hope. A key advantage about working from home is the chance to be healthier and more fit. I have come to realize that working out and exercising more has a huge impact on productivity. Mm-hmm. So this is definitely something I would recommend. I mean, that's something that I personally can see. I've have the chance during my day to take an hour and do a yoga class on these new Zoom yoga classes. So
I try to do the same thing. And it could be right in the middle of the day where it's like, okay, I'm gonna take half an hour now and work out. And I put down my mat and I work out and then take a shower afterwards and then go back to work. I'm able to do that very easily. So I know that we've got just a couple of minutes left, or actually we're at the end of our session. But I wanted to remind everyone that next Monday evening is our spring event, also a virtual event. We've got an amazing internationally known keynote speaker who's going to be presenting 7 keys to a successful coaching business. And then we've also booked an executive from Virtue Zone who's going to be talking about how to legally register your coaching business in the UAE, whether it's in a free zone, whether it's in the mainland or even offshore. So you can register by going on to our blog on the ICF website, coachfederation.ae/blog. And with that, I say thank you very much for your participation. Really appreciate the comments and the feedback that you've given and that you've taken the time to be with us today. So have a great evening, and fill out the survey afterwards, and we'll see you on Monday. Good night.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Are we logging out?